creek there is we have state buffer, county buffer, and impervious setback. The house and everything is impervious. It's in the way it has to be. Okay. But I have about 13 feet of deck, which is going to encroach to the impervious setback. The square footage is going to be around 200 square foot, 230 square foot of this. And what I have in the total impervious square footage, it's 10,500 in whole lot, which I'm going to just use 240 of 230 of that.
How many? The existing pool deck is 13 feet into the setback?
It's about 15 by 40. One side is like a triangle, is in the impervious.
So are you increasing the footprint of the pad, or are you decreasing it, the existing one?
No, I haven't built it. It's just a new.
Oh, it's brand. Oh, new.
Yeah, I haven't. I just started clearing in the lot.
Okay.
I'm just.
So the board knows what he did was he bought this lot. He came in for a permit to build a residence, which is all in compliance with the setbacks, including the buffers. But he'd like to add, including the pool and the pool deck, but he'd like to add a small elevated a wooden deck above. And so he would be encroaching, there'd be like 3 or 4 piers that would have to be in that area.
It's going to be covered, so I just want to make sure.
It's going to be a covered porch?
Covered porch, yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
What's below? Is there a cement pad below the deck?
What I'm going to do, I'm going to just do all the pool deck and also the back deck. It's going to be impervious pavers.
It's not going to be impervious paper.
Impervious, yes, impervious paper.
Pervious.
Yes, pervious.
All right, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're going to have a deck that will be pervious.
Yes.
Okay. So is the deck going to have a cover over it?
Yes, it's going to have a cover.
Bob, so how do we?
I think it's an elevated deck, though, right?
It is.
Yeah, it's an elevated
My understanding
deck.
is that what he's going to do is he'll do the pool deck and a pervious pavement under it. And then there'll be some piers that come up, and there'll be a deck covered over it.
Got it. Any more questions from the board?
There's no other way that this can be designed so as not to have to do 75 foot?
The house is right on that line. It's a very big lot, but because of that creek, and the creek, it was like 100 years over there, and it's all the erosion went. It's a bad creek over there. Nobody pay attention to it, and nobody can touch it because it's state water. That line is just all over the place. It's killing all that good lot section.
So if you look at the site plan, he's kind of squeezed between the 60-foot building line and that buffer line. And he did work pretty hard with staff to get the building in, at least to fit in that spot. And then we even got the pool to fit, and then he wanted a covered deck, and there was just no other place.
You worked hard on that.
Place to put it, so
So this gentleman's done everything he can to comply with it. So this would be what you would consider a hardship case?
I would, and it's minimal. It's he's just looking for a couple of piers to kind of keep it up. So it's really not like if it was part of the main house
Everybody all right?
building, I would think that.
You have our blessing.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Your next step. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Just so you know, you still have to attend
Yes.
to Tuesdays, the BZA.
Yes. When I'm going to. It's here. Okay. Thank you.
You can fill out that card.
I'm going to.
We'll get in big trouble over the cards, ladies and gentlemen. So, 15955 Freemanville Road. Request to allow a pool deck, pool equipment to encroach into 75-foot impervious setback to allow pool deck, pool equipment encroach into the 50-foot stream buffer. Come on down.
My name is Gray Timms. I own Signature Pool Designs in Cumming, Georgia, 7045 Greenfield Lane, Cumming, 30028. What we have is a client that has a little over 10 and a half acres on Freemanville Road. The house and the existing swimming pool and pool deck was built back before City of Milton. Once City of Milton came in, the buffers were adopted, and therefore we have a 75-foot impervious buffer and a 50-foot vegetative buffer that both the current pool decking, and pool equipment both encroach into almost 2,000 square feet. The pool itself has several structural issues along its leaking, plus it doesn't really serve the homeowner well. He has some medical issues that requires him to really swim laps. So our proposal is to completely demolition and remove the existing swimming pool, pool deck, and pool equipment as it stands now, and construct a new in-ground gunite pool that's 82 feet long, allowing him to swim laps so that he can take care of his medical issues. We are going to still need to be into the 75-foot impervious. However, we're not encroaching into the 50-foot as it currently is now. Based on the calculations, I think we're technically giving back about 1,000 square feet total, both from the impervious and the vegetative setbacks. So basically, we're asking for 1,000 square feet into the 75-foot impervious buffer to allow this new construction take place.
So Bob, your point of view.
Well, when I reviewed this one, it's pretty clear that they have an existing pool that encroaches into the 50, actually, not just the 75, and that the applicants work really hard to kind of get it so that the new pool, although not as wide and much longer, but it would actually reduce and substantially reduce the impact on the buffer.
Okay.
So this is a case
It's
where
a hardship and an improvement over what it is.
it's really an improvement over what it is. Yeah. I just had one question. The existing wall, is that going to remain?
That's going to come out as well.
Oh, okay. So the new walls are limited to 6 feet in height. Are you okay with that?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so it's not
The
gonna
elevation change is 28 inches.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So you're not going to worry about it?
Yeah.
All right. Then I think we're good.
You good?
Is this a new property? Did someone buy the property?
No, the current owner, I believe, bought it maybe 4 or 5 years ago. He actually bought 2 pieces of property there. There was 6 acres and 4 acres. He's since combined those two to get to 10 acres. And he's doing quite a bit of improvements to the property and additions to the house and that sort of thing too.
I've been on the property. It's beautiful property. Yeah. It's going to be a nice improvement.
Good. Do we have any questions from board members? Do we have any questions from the public? All right. I don't find anything objectionable, so nobody on the board has it, so go in peace with our recommendation to move forward to the next step.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. You did fill out the card. Good. Next one, 850 Hickory Flat Road.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Reese with Brummerlow Reese & Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004. Curtis Mills is here. I guess I'm his agent on this. He's going to do the majority of the speaking. I guess any technical questions involving the variances, I will do my best to answer. We have pictures to pass out that show the building that will be relocated from its existing location in Alpharetta, the Matilda Under the Pines music venue. So we're proposing to relocate it to the northwest corner of the Hickory Flat Birmingham Highway intersection. It's a very unique venue that I think will be a great asset to the city of Milton. I'll let Curtis Mills then discuss his project, and we'll try to answer any questions as necessary.
Good evening. I'm Curtis Mills. I live at 16355 Birmingham Highway, which is about a mile north of the Birmingham Crossroads. My place of business is across the street from this property in the old green building behind the Wells Fargo. It's called the Newton House, used to be the old Birmingham Hotel. I have an affinity for old historic properties and have bought a number of them to preserve them, including what was Bice's store, then Wilbur and Rudy's, and includes this property. It's about a 7-acre parcel, and I am not a real estate developer, and I don't say that with disdain. I've got plenty of friends that are real estate developers. I'm not. I have a business that does mainly mergers and acquisitions based across the street or across the country. This is sort of a hobby and a love. A friend of mine in November called me up and said, "Have you ever heard of Matilda's Under the Pines?" Sorry, Mary Jane, but I said, "No, I've never heard of Matilda's Under the Pines," and said, "You got to come check this out. I think it would be perfect for you to forklift and move to the old Bice's store site because it's going to be bulldozed when they start the redevelopment of Alpharetta." That was Friday afternoon. Friday night, I went with he and his wife and a couple of other friends, saw a bunch of folks from Milton that I knew, and met Mary Jane Potter, who it will be available for questions as well. And we hit it off, and the next day she came out and walked property with me, and we figured out pretty quickly that it was an easy and nice fit, and started after this. That was November time frame, and fast forwarding, here we are today. I think your orientation is architectural and maybe look and feel, but I don't want to be presumptuous. I could give you background on crowd sizes. I could talk about the variance requests. I do have some photos that I've copied that Angela is going to pass around, give you an idea of the little structure. Today, I don't know if any of you all happen to have ever been before, but it's on Highway 9 in sort of a folk art, funky, eclectic little area. You'd know it if you saw it. And currently the stage is a porch on a little 450 square foot farmhouse. I think it fits right in with Milton. Unfortunately, y'all probably approved the destruction of a couple of them earlier tonight, but I happen to love those little things, and we intend to forklift that structure. Not really forklift, but we intend to move it intact as is. You'll see photos of it. The front of that little building will face Hickory Flat, albeit 420 feet back from the road. That is by design to get the any crowd and noise further away and embedded in the property. Site plans in the package, but the adjoining property owners to every aspect of this piece of property is one, Doug and Sharna McCurry, residential on the west side. They happen to be really good friends of mine. I've known Doug for 25 years or more. And then it's City of Milton, Birmingham Park, City of Milton, undeveloped property, Shell Station, commercial property, and then the old Bice's store, which is a separate parcel, and I own that. So there's one adjoining residential parcel. For your reference, I vectored out for some sound and decibel studies, that testing that we're still doing right now, in hopes that I can withdraw the noise concurrent variance. Don't know yet. The closest house to the stage is 360 feet. That's the McCurry's. I think it goes 380, a couple of properties away, and then it gets 500, 1,000. Since I went that far with the noise, whether y'all care or not, in the 18 years that Mary Jane Potter and her husband have been operating, they've never had a single noise complaint in the city of Alpharetta. 18 years, every year, 6-7 months of operations says something. So I want to make sure I'm talking about what y'all want to know. So if you wouldn't mind a little direction, I'd be happy to talk about how we came up with the site, any plans with the structure, etc. And forgive me if I should know that, I just don't.
I think from our perspective, it's going to be more of just the design concept of the building and how it's going to be set up. You know, as it relates to anything else, I don't know that we really can make real good comment. And as you already know, because you live there, you know and I know that that is a very contentious intersection at the very best. So my personal position is I want to stay out of the weeds if I can. So with that being said, I've heard great things about Matilda's, so this is not about Matilda's one way or the other. It's going to be about what the public's going to find desirable there, and what City Council will ultimately decide that's going to be there. So you, as Scott, I'm sure you already know, there's been one contentious meeting that's not very old in our past. So I want to try to stick this meeting to this, not to waste your time, make you spend time on things that you don't want to talk about, but we got to take and make it be just something about the structural aspect of it in the park, just itself, and all the variances and stuff like that. I don't know, we as a board need to get into those weeds about those variances. So I would like to refrain from getting into the weeds for that, and I think you can respect that. So it's going to go, as both you gentlemen know, it's going to go way beyond this board to what this is or is not. And I don't want to take and muddy the water.
I'm all for clear water, so I'm
So
being facetious.
you understand.
I don't care. I'm happy
for example,
to talk
for
about
me
whatever
personally,
you want.
if I thought the public would buy into it and it was a great idea, I like Matilda's from all that I've heard from others about Matilda's. So I'd really have no personal opposition to it. However, you know and I know it's going to be about the public desire for what that's going to be. It's not necessarily going to be what we think the design of this particular is going to be. So, you know, and I've come at odds with others only because even at our city vision plan that we have, there's things about it as an individual that I really don't like. But I got to be supportive of it, and I can make my thoughts. I mean, there's lots of things that I like to have seen at the Crossroads that didn't get built. So I would like for us to be able to just talk about just the structures themselves.
Fine.
Okay?
So tonight we are talking about structures. We are giving.
You don't really have a lot of design, architectural renderings and things of that sort at this point, do you?
Well, you've got photos of the house. I did a layman's rendering of the floor plan to get the square footage, but that was not required for the package. I really did it for my letter of intent, so I could say, you know, it's 20 feet wide by 22 feet long, and the porch is 20 feet wide by 9 point something, which I could tell you, and to get the square footage. I think the one point Scott, they may, I don't know what those, they may, I think I just gave them those photos.
We got
Okay.
Yeah, we got that. Here.
I've been to Matilda's several times. My 7-year-old daughter basically grew up in Matilda's, and she had a blast there. And I think, honestly, just from a design standpoint, you would think Matilda's is in Milton. You really wouldn't think it was in Alpharetta. So everything about Matilda's, I think, would fit perfectly from what I remember about it. It's been a couple years since I was there, but it's kind of
It's early 1900s
music,
building.
Americana, very
Yeah.
much feel
Yeah,
to
maybe
to
maybe
Milton.
30s, 40s.
I was going to say 1942 based on the overhang, but
Yeah. Well, it's been modified a bit. That porch was added, even though it doesn't look like it, to be the stage many years ago. The porch faces east, front of the house. Porch looks like the front if you're listening to music, but it's really the side of the house. And it is very much a Milton old farmhouse. At the bottom of my driveway on Birmingham Highway, I'm just finishing the restoration of a 1940s farmhouse that if I'd known about this, I probably would have moved it to the site, but it is just not fancy, but very typical for the area that I wanted to preserve, and Mary Jane feels exactly the same way. And if you've been there, you know. I mean, it's part of the experience almost. It sets the stage. And as for your 7-year-old, that audience area in the site plan, the back half of that is kids' play area. So the plan is still for it to be inside safe, kid-friendly for, family-friendly stuff.
well, I applaud your idea and I applaud Matilda's,
Mr. Chair,
but it's for a bigger.
I'm just not sure if there's any public comment on this one.
I will. Okay. Do we have any more board comment?
I just have a question. Where on the site plan that you have, where was it gonna the music gonna face? I couldn't really tell.
Well, yeah.
West, east,
West to east.
west to
The
east.
assembly area.
Well, the side porch faces east, and they'll be playing
that's the building there.
out
Okay, got it.
east, right?
Oh, I see what you
Yeah,
mean.
west.
There's the line.
Okay, got it. I'm a UGA grad,
What's the
so you
center
gotta
area here?
bear with me.
So the music is
West to
being
east.
broadcast to the back of the
To the road.
commercial buildings.
To Birmingham Road.
Yeah, the liquor.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
to
The Shell Station. Yeah.
to Birmingham Highway.
Highway. Yeah. Sorry. So
There's a bunch of foliage thicket, and I mean it's heavily wooded between there and there's a residential property. If any of y'all happen to live down there, there's a big red, like a Mack truck parked there. It's been a rental property for years and years. That's eventually past the city of Milton property through the woods, and then it's Birmingham Highway.
But the orientation that we tried to set up for least obtrusive is the direction of the sound going into the back
Commercial.
of the commercial.
Yeah.
Trying to alleviate as much stress on the residential properties. So facing into the back of the commercial buildings, we felt like, and that there is a buffer of foliage along that property line.
I just got to ask, Scott, what is that proposed septic area? What is that?
Well, I mean,
Is that just a proposed septic
Right,
area? That's all it is?
yes, that's the area that we've tested
Okay.
for level 3 soils. We're not sure if everything proceeds and all the permits are granted. Curtis knows he's going to have to provide a restroom, and in the preliminary planning, we've got to make sure we have adequate soils, and so that's kind of part of the use permit process.
When you look at this type of facility, how many people at one given time are you thinking that you might have?
Good question. Averages run between 150 and 175, peaking at around 200. That's not scientific precision, but
And so how many parking spaces do you
they sell tickets, so they know. Parking spaces. In the letter of intent, I talk about parking plans pretty heavily. Net, we have 30 in that site plan, and the idea is, like Crabapple, And like the existing facility, if you remember, at the existing Matilda's, there are 12 parking spots on site. And there's a fair amount of Uber because it's people bring beer and wine, and it's so easy now, and they don't have to drive home. So the Uber aspect is getting actually fairly significant. And then we wanted to lever, since it is off hours and complementary to the retail and office parking. My office is right across the street. I've talked with the other building owners about, you have any problem if we have overflow parking in our, because we don't use it. We're Monday through Friday, essentially 8 to 5, 6. It's empty, right? On a Friday night or a Saturday night, no point, as I think they cleared in Crabapple, and putting in a whole bunch of parking spaces when it already exists and it's perfect time. So the plan is to lever that and potentially other corners if needed, and expect that Uber will continue, Uber and Lyft, will continue the trend that they've been on. That being said, there's a ton of space if we need more. It's been graveled and used for, if any of y'all have been around for a long time, they used to sell farm implements there, anything that, they could get and sell. People parked there for, we're talking 100 years. The original structure was built in the 1800s. It burned down and was vacant until 1930. They rebuilt the store where it is today. And there was an old house. One of my neighbors down the road said he was born in it, but there was an old house in the middle of the open field where people are parking today. But it's wide open. It's a handful of acres. I want to say it's 2.7 in a rectangle going from Hickory Flat back to the edge of this house. So no matter what is done with the store building, if we needed to add parking, we have a ton of space.
Per the use permit regs, it requires 2 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. So the requirement is 20 parking spaces. We have proposed 44 on your site plan.
I thought it was 30.
Gravel. There's 22
Okay.
So we more than double the required. And that's without even going into the overflow.
Well, without making a whole lot of comment, that the public had demanded to meet the law at the last event that happened with this. So I suspect this one may not, in fact, go much different than that, but there's no way we know. So all we can tell you is, Curtis, we appreciate you being a member of our city. We appreciate the opportunity. We appreciate Matilda's. It's going to have to go its due course, and there are powers to be that are above what we do.
You don't think anyone would oppose this, do you?
Do you really want to bait me?
No, they're my good friends, so I'm
So
well
the
aware
bottom
of
line
what,
is, without
what may
going
be
to
coming.
making any political comment whatsoever,
Yeah.
I will tell you that it is for the powers to be, not for me. It's not for this board. Once we get to something that's really, that we can sink our teeth into what it's going to look like and what's proposed and what we can get, then we will enjoy being able to be a party to that.
Well, you all will hear when we, assuming that we are approved, if we are approved, we will be back with some external bathrooms that are, I think, going to be completely appropriate, but you'll be involved in, in that one from an architectural and a design standpoint. So if this goes forward, you'll be seeing us again, and frankly, we have some other ideas that I think will be even more appropriate for the area, but you'll see all that if we get that far.
Well, you obviously know, both you and Scott both know that it's a difficult crossroad to get stuff built in. So
Because what?
it's a difficult crossroads. In the past, we've presented lots of things that haven't gotten built, you know, and I hope you guys succeed. I hope you get something close to what you want, or I hope that it works out. But that being said, all we can do is talk about the way it's going to look, and that's really basically it. So Scott really wants us to comply with our job, which is only to say what it's going to look like. So thank you very much for your time. I think that the board, you know, this is just a review. So, and next we need to get up for public comment. Do we have any more comment from the board?
Did you have any comments about any of the variances or like the buffers or
You know,
of the building or?
Well, from a look and feel standpoint, did you spot you know where the festival code came from? The Atlanta Renaissance Festival down in in-town Atlanta is where the festival design criteria came from, and when City of Milton was formed, they cut and paste that. So they require an 8-foot opaque fence around the entire property. Fairly absurd for the Birmingham Crossroads, I think, if you know that parcel. I mean, it's ridiculous. And there are a handful of things like that if I did this and didn't request a variance, which I could have squinted my eyes and done, they'd have been running me out of town, you know, with pitchforks and torches, even though I realize I'm catching bullets for having any variance requests at all. But that's a look and feel question, the 8-foot opaque fence.
Well, if you remember correctly, a lot of people didn't want Crabapple to be built the way that it is.
Oh, yeah.
So there's lots of oppositions, lots of things, you know, and sometimes I wonder when we sit on these boards, because, you know, obviously all of us are volunteers that essentially sit on these boards, you know, and we know what we hear, we know what we like. I mean, everybody on this board, everybody likes something a little bit different. So everybody's got a mind of their own. Everybody's got a voice.
Well, thank you for that. I was on the planning commission for 5 years, so I'm with you. But so we requested a variance for the opaque fence to be replaced by 4-board with a landscape strip, which I think is much more appropriate for Milton and certainly that area. And we would tie into the neighbor's 4-board fence, so it would look
The only thing that I'm going to
appropriate.
say is that based on follow the law, follow what it is. And there's a lot of people that will be for this, and there's going to be some people that are against it. And I just don't know what to even tell you other than we got to get to the meat of it before we can really know.
Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
As far as the comments go for this, I personally believe that it needs to, I would like to see the applicant do more, and I don't know if this is the proper word, Curtis, so please accept it, a stockholders type meeting of that area and a proposal to see what it's going to be. And
That's
what public support's gonna
scheduled
be.
on Monday night.
Okay. So I
The
really think
7th.
that's where our successes are going to be. Our success is going to be is to get public support
Yeah.
for what's going to be done, because everybody that serves on our council is what? Elected. So everybody's elected, everybody's got an opinion. The reality is the public wants it and it's legal to do it. Then there's a good opportunity to be had to get it done. But I think you're going to have to get public support to get it built.
I agree completely.
So stockholders meetings or stakeholders meetings, rather.
That's scheduled for Monday night, the 7th, at the store. And if anyone wants to walk it,
Yeah. So our goal is in this meeting today, or my goal would be, for me, is that when you leave the meeting, you don't feel that we have been against this. I don't want you to think that we're supportive of new ideas. I'm a big believer in new ideas for stuff to be done. And there's lots of things I'd love to see us do and new ideas. So you got to keep having new ideas, new ways to formulate to do things. And some of it will stick and some of it will be good. But if we didn't shoot the box, outside the box a little bit, we're not going to get stuff done except.
Well, I got that property so that it wouldn't be bulldozed and replaced by a CVS. And my intentions are to try to do something good. This is certainly not an economically smart thing to do. The Birmingham mini storage and car wash would be an economically smart thing to do. That's not what I'm doing. So this is about trying to do something good for the area, period.
And I don't know
whether
where
it
it's going.
works out or not, we'll see. But
So, but and I know that it's going to be trying to get the public support and momentum behind it. So that's my only thought. My thought is I don't really want to comment on the variances because
Public comment?
I will get it.
Okay.
So, but I don't want to comment on the variances only because I don't think we have enough information to be able to comment on them one way or the other at this point.
Will we have another opportunity to comment on those things?
We will.
After it's approved?
Once it gets to a level where we actually have a facility to look at and the renderings and the drawings, setbacks and all the stuff to look at, then it'll come before us. So it's not like we're going to say we don't have a comment on the variances and we don't have a comment on anything about this. We'll get to see it again.
And if you have questions or comments on the variant, you can make those.
Sure.
Because those are going to be forwarded to the council. So, yeah.
I'm kind of in agreement with Marty. Right now, just looking at the list of variances, it's hard to say how each one of them kind of applies until I have a full plan view layout of it. Then I can pull a little bit more information. I get what you're saying, but it's kind of hard for me to tell. I've never been to the original Matilda's. So, of course, I live near. I'm right there in Canterbury on the lakes.
yeah.
So I'm a Publix girl all the way. So I just have some other questions that will come up, like you said, during the next review. They will definitely come up during the next review. And you said that meeting is on Monday, the 7th?
The stakeholders.
That's the public information meeting where the city gives me all of the addresses within whatever the distance is. I don't know, quarter mile, half mile. I sent out 55 letters, invited 55 citizens, which includes the city of Milton and the church, that, every property owner got a letter to come fire away, ask questions, whatever. So we'll see.
Of course, there'll be a planning commission meeting and city council with time for public comments.
Okay.
Right.
A more in-depth undertaking of the variances.
Okay.
The variances, we hate that the fact that there are 9, but what we have is we have a lot of conflicts between a use permit and the Birmingham Crossroads overlays. So we've got one that's asking for an 8-foot high opaque fence, and then we have a rural Milton overlay and a Birmingham Crossroads overlay that says you only have 4-board wooden fences.
Mm-hmm.
And then planting areas and buffers as far as.
Yeah, they want the structure within 20 feet of the front of Hickory Flat as if it's retail. And we think that would be crazy because of the noise and, and everything else. And it's not retail, right? It's not even commercial. Special use permit, the structure is actually on AG1 land, right over the line, but it's on AG1 land. And then they want the parking behind the building. Each one of these is one of the variances. They want the parking behind the building away from the road. So if we do move it back because the music would be too loud right on the road, that would be very close to the McCurry's house, then picture headlights coming for 400 feet on the audience while the show's going on, and then sort of driving through it and parking on the other side. But since there's power line easement coming through, which you can see, they're driving under the power line easement and parking somewhere in the woods and making their way in the dark. I mean, I don't mean to make light of that. I mean, these the code was designed for a reason, just not this reason. And so, it sounds crazy. And to be honest, you talked about the opposition. Those guys are my friends, and I've been right next to them with torches and pitchforks arguing against the wrong kind of development as and we saw it. I mean, I get it completely. And if you told me, if I was sitting either in your chair or on the planning commission and I hadn't reviewed or really understood the package and somebody said, you've got 9 concurrent variances, I don't even have to look at this. There's not a chance in the world that 9 concurrent variances makes any sense denied. And I think it does, so anyway.
Well, the benefit is we're not saying this should be denied.
I get that it's going to be a bit of I will say I'm going to extreme lengths with my friends, the McCurrys, to get their full support. For example, on the site plan that you have, and in my letter of intent where I talk about each variance and the reason from a legal standpoint why each variance is justified, originally we went with a 25-foot setback, including a 10-foot landscape strip on the west property line, which is the only residential line. That's my friends, the McCurrys. 4-board fence, 420 feet from Hickory Flat back to their back corner. And they were fine. We walked it, Mary Jane came, and they were fine with it, and then they started to get nervous and said, you know what, I'm afraid at some point, Curtis, if you get hit by a car, somebody might come in to convert this C1 to retail and try to grandfather that 25. Well, you all may know it's 75 on a 4-acre or larger C1 parcel between it and residential. Smaller than C1, it's 60. Smaller than 4 acres, rather, it's 60. This is a 2.7 acre C parcel. So they said, we're nervous about this, Curtis, and we figured out how to reconfigure the location of the structure a little bit, and I'm going to modify it. I'm not quite ready to officially, or I would have said it tonight. I'm going to modify it from 25 to 60 so the McCurrys will be happy. So I'm going to try to cross every T and dot every I and keep everybody that can be happy. We'll see. I mean, I get it. I get that not everybody can be happy. So
that's true. So what I'm going to do is look for a public comment. Do we have any public comment? Okay, with no public comment, is there any more comment from staff?
I just want to remind the board, so when this comes back to you, everything will kind of be set in stone. So if you have questions or comments or concerns, this is your time.
About the variances?
About any of, the variances or any part of the project, this is kind of the time to, any comments you want me to send to the council?
I think that from our standpoint, we're just going to have to stick with whatever the law is what we're going to recommend.
Anyone else?
No. So that would be my comment.
Okay.
Any other comments? Mr. Mills, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Reese?
I
Good to see you, sir.
appreciate it.
All right, do we have any new business? Do we have any old business?
I have none. Don't forget the training on next Friday and Saturday.
Is there tequila and steak?
They haven't given us the menu yet. There will be food.
Tell them I have a very
Next Friday.
strict religious diet that requires filet mignon and lobster.
It's next Friday,
Yeah.
The 11th,
the 11th.
In the afternoon, and then we have Saturday morning, and it goes till 2.
like 9 to 2.
Not this Friday.
Next
11
Friday,
to
yeah.
12.
Okay. With that being said, there's no more old